Marcus Rodriguez stepped out of his luxury car onto the busy downtown street. The 60-year-old businessman had just finished another successful board meeting at his company headquarters. His tailored suit caught the afternoon sunlight as he walked toward his favorite coffee shop, the same one he had visited every Tuesday for the past 5 years. The weight of recent events pressed heavily on his shoulders. 3 months ago, his wife Elena had passed away after a long battle with cancer. Their children lived in different cities, busy with their own families and careers. The massive mansion he called home felt emptier each day, filled only with memories, and the echo of his own footsteps. Marcus had built his fortune from nothing. Starting as a construction worker in his 20s, he had slowly climbed his way up, eventually owning one of the largest construction companies in the state. Money had never been a problem for him, but lately, it felt meaningless. Every luxury he owned seemed to mock him with its inability to bring back the warmth of human connection. As he rounded the corner near the coffee shop, something made him stop. There, sitting on a piece of cardboard next to a lamppost, was a young woman holding 3 small babies. She couldn't have been older than 25. Her clothes were worn and dirty, her hair unkempt, but her eyes held a fierce determination as she gently rocked the infants in her arms. The babies were crying, their tiny voices creating a chorus that seemed to cut through the noise of the busy street. Passers-by hurried past, most avoiding eye contact, some dropping loose change into a small cup beside her. Marcus found himself unable to move, transfixed by the scene before him. The woman noticed him staring and looked up with tired but proud eyes. She didn't ask for money or plead for help. Instead, she simply nodded slightly in acknowledgement before turning her attention back to soothing her babies. There was something about her dignity in such desperate circumstances that struck Marcus deeply. He thought about his own children when they were babies, how Elena would stay up all night when they were sick, how they had everything they could ever need and more. These 3 little ones had nothing but their mother's love, yet she held them with the same tenderness he remembered from his own home years ago. Marcus reached into his wallet and pulled out all the cash he had, about $300. He approached slowly, not wanting to startle the young mother. When he knelt down beside her and offered the money, she looked at him with surprise and suspicion. "I don't need pity," she said quietly, her voice stronger than her appearance suggested. "I'm not a beggar. I'm just going through a hard time right now." Her words hit Marcus harder than any business rejection ever had. Here was someone who had lost everything but still maintained her dignity. He realized that his gesture, while well-intentioned, might have seemed condescending to someone fighting so hard to survive. "I'm sorry," Marcus said softly. "I didn't mean to offend you. I lost my wife recently, and seeing you with your children reminded me of better times. Please, take this not as charity, but as one parent helping another." The woman studied his face for a long moment. The sincerity in his voice seemed to soften her defensive stance. One of the babies started crying louder, and she shifted her position to comfort the child. Marcus could see the exhaustion in every movement she made. "My name is Marcus," he said, still kneeling beside her. "What's your name?" "Isabella," she replied after a hesitation. "These are my babies, Sophia, Miguel, and Anna. They're 4 months old." Her voice carried both pride and worry as she introduced her children. Marcus looked at the 3 tiny faces, each one different but equally beautiful. Their mother's love was evident in how carefully she held them, how she instinctively knew which one needed attention when they cried. Despite their difficult circumstances, the babies looked healthy and cared for. "Have you eaten today?" Marcus asked gently. Isabella's silence was answer enough. She had been giving everything to keep her babies fed and healthy, leaving nothing for herself. Marcus could see the hunger in her eyes, the way her hands shook slightly from exhaustion and malnutrition. Without saying another word, Marcus stood up and walked into the nearby grocery store. He filled a cart with baby formula, diapers, baby food, and fresh groceries. He also grabbed some ready-to-eat meals and bottles of water. When he returned to Isabella, her eyes widened at the sight of all the supplies. "I can't accept all this," she protested, but her voice lacked conviction. The babies were fussing more now, and Marcus could see her internal struggle between pride and the desperate need to care for her children. "Please," Marcus said, setting the bags down beside her. "Let me help. No strings attached, no expectations, just one human being helping another." As Isabella looked at the supplies and then at her crying babies, tears began to fall down her cheeks. For the first time since Marcus had approached her, her tough exterior cracked, revealing the vulnerable, young mother underneath. She reached out and touched one of the formula cans as if it were made of gold. Marcus felt his own eyes welling up with tears. In this moment, surrounded by the chaos of city life, he felt more connected to another human being than he had in months. This young mother's strength and love for her children reminded him of what truly mattered in life. The encounter was far from over, and Marcus sensed that this meeting would change both of their lives in ways neither could imagine. Isabella wiped her tears with the back of her hand, trying to maintain some composure in front of this stranger, who had shown her more kindness than she had experienced in months. Marcus remained kneeling beside her, patiently waiting as she processed his unexpected generosity. "Why are you doing this?" Isabella asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "You don't even know me." Marcus thought about her question carefully. He looked at the three babies, now quieter in their mother's arms, and then back at Isabella's questioning eyes. "Because someone should," he said simply. "And because I wish someone had been there for my family when we needed help years ago." As they talked, Marcus learned more about Isabella's story. She had been working as a nurse at a local hospital until complications during her pregnancy forced her to take early leave. The father of her babies had disappeared when he learned she was carrying triplets, leaving her alone and overwhelmed. Her savings quickly ran out during her difficult pregnancy, and she had been evicted from her apartment 2 weeks ago. "I've been staying at the women's shelter," Isabella explained, gently bouncing baby Sophia, who had started fussing again. "But they can only keep us for 30 days, and our time is almost up. I've been looking for work, but no one wants to hire someone who needs to bring 3 babies with them." The reality of Isabella's situation hit Marcus like a punch to the stomach. Here was an educated, capable woman who had simply been dealt an impossible hand by life. She wasn't on the streets because of addiction or poor choices, but because a series of circumstances had stripped away every safety net she had. "Where are your parents? Your family?" Marcus asked gently. Isabella's expression darkened slightly. "My parents died in a car accident when I was 18. I don't have any brothers or sisters. I thought Carlos, their father, would be my family, but..." She trailed off, looking down at her children with a mixture of love and sadness. Marcus felt a familiar ache in his chest. He remembered his own struggles in his 20s, working multiple jobs just to make rent, feeling alone in a world that seemed indifferent to his dreams. The main difference was that he hadn't had 3 babies depending on him for survival. "Have you applied for government assistance?" Marcus asked. "I'm on the waiting list for housing assistance, but they said it could take months, maybe longer," Isabella replied. "I get WIC for the babies, but it's not enough. I've been to every social service office in the city, filled out hundreds of forms, but everything moves so slowly when you need help right now." As if on cue, baby Miguel started crying again, followed quickly by his sisters. Isabella tried to soothe them, but Marcus could see she was reaching her breaking point. The stress of their situation was affecting the babies too, making them more fussy and difficult to calm. "Isabella," Marcus said, making a decision that would change everything. "I have a proposal for you. Please hear me out before you say no." Isabella looked at him suspiciously, her protective instincts immediately alert. She had learned to be wary of men who offered help with strings attached. "I have a large house," Marcus continued carefully. "It's been empty since my wife died. Just me rattling around in rooms that used to be full of life. I'm not suggesting anything inappropriate. I'm talking about a business arrangement. You need a safe place to stay with your babies, and I need help organizing my life." Isabella's eyes narrowed. "What kind of help?" Marcus hadn't really thought this through, but the words kept coming. "My house is a mess. I haven't been taking care of it properly since Elena passed. I need someone to help me organize, maybe do some light housekeeping. In exchange, you and the babies would have a safe place to live while you get back on your feet. Separate living quarters, of course. Complete privacy and independence. The offer hung in the air between them like a bridge over a vast canyon. Isabella looked down at her babies, then at the bags of supplies Marcus had bought, then back at his earnest face. Every instinct told her to be careful, but desperation was wearing down her usual caution. I don't know you, she said finally. For all I know, you could be dangerous. Marcus nodded understandingly. You're absolutely right to be cautious. Tell you what, let me give you my business card. Look me up online, call my office, ask anyone about my reputation. Take your time to think about it. But please, at least, let me help you get a hotel room for tonight so you and the babies don't have to sleep on the street. Isabella stared at the business card he handed her. Rodriguez Construction Company, Marcus Rodriguez, CEO. Her eyes widened slightly as she recognized the name. Even she had heard of Rodriguez Construction. They had built half the major buildings in the city. You're really him? She asked, studying his face more carefully. I really am, Marcus confirmed. And I really am just a lonely old man who sees someone in need and wants to help. No ulterior motives, I promise. Isabella looked around at the busy street where she had been sitting for hours, hoping for enough donations to buy formula for her babies. She thought about the shelter where she would have to leave soon, about the uncertainty of not knowing where they would sleep or how they would eat. Then she looked at this well-dressed businessman who claimed to want nothing more than to help. Okay, she said quietly. I'll think about your offer. But first, I want to research you thoroughly. Marcus smiled, the first genuine smile he had felt in months. I wouldn't expect anything less from a smart woman like you. As the sun began to set over the busy city street, Marcus helped Isabella gather her few belongings and the supplies he had bought. He called a taxi and gave the driver the address of a nearby family hotel, along with enough money for several nights' stay. Take some time to think about it, he said as he helped her into the taxi with the babies. Here's my phone number. Call me when you've made your decision, whatever it is. As the taxi drove away, Marcus stood alone on the sidewalk, feeling something he hadn't experienced in months. Hope. Not just hope for Isabella and her babies, but hope that perhaps his wealth could finally serve a purpose greater than just accumulating more wealth. For Isabella, sitting in the back of the taxi with her 3 babies finally safe and warm, the business card in her hand represented a possibility she hadn't dared to imagine. Could this stranger really be the answer to her prayers, or was she about to make the biggest mistake of her life? That night in the hotel room, Isabella sat on the bed with her laptop, which she had managed to keep throughout all her hardships. The babies were finally sleeping peacefully after being fed and changed, their tiny bodies sprawled across the soft hotel bedding. For the first time in weeks, Isabella felt safe enough to actually research the man who had made such an extraordinary offer. She started with a simple Google search of Marcus Rodriguez. Hundreds of articles appeared, detailing his rise from construction worker to successful businessman. She found photos of him at charity events, news stories about his company's community projects, and interviews where he talked about the importance of giving back. There were also recent obituaries for his wife Elena, describing her as a beloved philanthropist who had worked with several children's charities. Isabella called the main number for Rodriguez Construction Company. When she asked to verify that Marcus Rodriguez was indeed the CEO, the receptionist confirmed it without hesitation. She even mentioned that Mr. Rodriguez had recently lost his wife and hadn't been in the office as much lately. Everything seemed legitimate, but Isabella's nursing background had taught her to be thorough when making life-changing decisions. She spent hours reading about Marcus and his company, looking for any red flags or negative reports. What she found, instead, was a consistent pattern of generosity and integrity. His employees spoke highly of him in online reviews, describing him as fair and compassionate. The business had an excellent rating with the Better Business Bureau, and there were no scandals or controversies associated with his name. As she researched, baby Anna woke up crying. Isabella picked her up and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights while gently bouncing her daughter. For months she had been making impossible decisions, choosing between buying diapers and eating meals, sleeping in parks when the shelter was full. Now a stranger was offering her and her babies a chance at stability. The next morning, Isabella called Marcus. Her voice was nervous, but determined when he answered the phone. "I've been thinking about your offer," she said, holding baby Miguel while Sophia and Anna slept in their carriers. "I'm interested, but I have conditions." "Of course," Marcus replied, sounding genuinely pleased to hear from her. "What are your conditions?" "First, I want to see the house and meet you properly before I agree to anything. Second, I need my own space completely separate from yours. Third, we need to establish clear boundaries about what my responsibilities would be. And fourth, I want everything in writing, a proper contract that protects both of us." Marcus was impressed by her thoroughness. "All of that sounds very reasonable. Would you like to see the house today?" 2 hours later, Marcus picked up Isabella and the babies in a spacious SUV equipped with 3 new car seats. Isabella was surprised by his thoughtfulness in preparing for their transport needs. As they drove through increasingly upscale neighborhoods, she began to understand just how successful Marcus really was. The house took Isabella's breath away. It was a sprawling estate with beautiful gardens, tall windows, and a circular driveway. But as they walked through the front door, Isabella could see what Marcus had meant about needing help organizing his life. The house was clean, but felt abandoned, with family photos turned face down and rooms that looked like they hadn't been used in months. "Elena loved this place," Marcus said quietly as they walked through the main living areas. "After she died, I couldn't bear to change anything, but I couldn't stand to look at everything either. It's been in limbo ever since." Isabella could feel the grief that permeated the house, but she could also see its potential to be a warm, loving home again. The kitchen was enormous, with top-of-the-line appliances that made her think of all the healthy meals she could prepare for her babies. The windows let in beautiful natural light, and there was even a small garden area where the babies could play safely when they got older. Marcus showed her to the guest wing, which was essentially a small apartment with its own entrance, bedroom, bathroom, and sitting area. It was more space than Isabella and her babies had ever had, and it was immaculate. "This would be completely yours," Marcus explained. "I rarely go into this section of the house. You'd have total privacy and independence. The main house has everything else: the kitchen, laundry room, library, and living areas, which you'd have full access to as well." As they talked, Isabella found herself relaxing around Marcus. He was gentle with her babies, offering to hold them when her arms got tired. He showed genuine interest in their individual personalities, asking about their eating and sleeping schedules. Most importantly, he never made her feel like a charity case or someone beneath his social status. "What would you expect me to do exactly?" Isabella asked as they sat in the kitchen while the babies napped in their carriers. Marcus considered the question carefully. "Honestly, I haven't been taking good care of this place or myself since Elena died. I eat takeout most nights. I've let bills pile up on my desk, and I avoid most of the rooms because they remind me too much of her. I suppose I need someone to help me figure out how to live in this house again." Isabella could see the pain in his eyes when he talked about his wife. She recognized the look of someone lost in grief, trying to find their way back to something resembling normal life. "I could help organize your papers, maybe do some meal planning and cooking," Isabella offered. "I'm a nurse, so I understand the importance of proper nutrition and maintaining a healthy environment. But I want to be clear. I'm not looking for a handout. I want to earn my place here by being genuinely helpful." "The fact that you want to earn your place here tells me everything I need to know about your character," Marcus said with a smile. "But I also want you to understand that helping you helps me too. This house has been too quiet, too empty. Having life in it again, hearing children's voices, seeing someone care about making it a home, that would be worth more than any housekeeping or organizing you could do." They spent the rest of the afternoon working out the details. Marcus would provide housing, utilities, and food for Isabella and the babies. In return, Isabella would help organize his personal affairs, do light housekeeping in the common areas, and prepare healthy meals that they could share if they both wanted company. She would also maintain the guest wing and help Marcus figure out what to do with Elena's belongings when he was ready. Isabella insisted on contributing financially once she found work, and Marcus agreed to help her search for nursing positions that would accommodate her situation as a single mother of triplets. They would try the arrangement for 3 months initially, with the option to extend if it worked well for both parties. As the sun set over Marcus's beautiful estate, Isabella felt something she hadn't experienced in months: optimism. She looked at her 3 babies, now content and safe in their carriers, and realized that sometimes miracles came in the form of unexpected kindness from strangers. For Marcus, watching Isabella interact with her children and seeing her genuine appreciation for his offer, he felt purposeful for the first time since Elena's death. Perhaps helping this young family would help him heal as well. The arrangement was unconventional, but both Marcus and Isabella sensed that it might be exactly what they all needed to rebuild their lives and find their way forward. The first week in Marcus's house was an adjustment period for everyone. Isabella moved carefully through her new environment, still somewhat disbelieving that this was real. The babies seemed to sense the change in their mother's stress levels and slept better than they had in months. For the first time since their birth, Isabella was able to get more than 2 consecutive hours of sleep. Marcus found himself looking forward to the sounds of daily life in his house. He would hear Isabella talking softly to her babies in the morning, the gentle sounds of her preparing their bottles, and occasionally the sweet sound of her humming lullabies. These sounds breathed life back into rooms that had been silent for too long. On the 3rd day, Isabella approached Marcus with a proposal that surprised him. She had been exploring the house and noticed his late wife's office, which had been left exactly as it was on the day Elena died. Papers were scattered across the desk. Half-finished charity projects were left open, and her reading glasses still sat beside an unfinished book. "I know this might be difficult to talk about," Isabella said gently, "but I think your wife would want her projects to be completed. I found information about a scholarship fund she was setting up for underprivileged nursing students. The paperwork is almost finished. It just needs final signatures and filing." Marcus felt his throat tighten. He had been avoiding Elena's office entirely, unable to face the remnants of her unfinished work. But hearing Isabella talk about Elena's passion for helping nursing students struck a chord with him. "She always said that nurses were the real heroes of healthcare," Marcus said quietly. "She wanted to help more people like you get their education and follow their dreams." Together, they spent the afternoon in Elena's office. Isabella handled the paperwork while Marcus shared stories about his wife's charitable work. He talked about how Elena had grown up poor and never forgot what it felt like to worry about money. She had made it her mission to help others in similar situations, especially women trying to build careers in healthcare. As they worked, baby Sophia started fussing. Without thinking, Marcus reached over and gently picked her up, bouncing her softly while continuing to talk about Elena's scholarship fund. Isabella watched in amazement as the 4-month-old baby immediately calmed down in his arms. "You're a natural with babies," Isabella commented, surprised by how comfortable Marcus seemed with her daughter. "Elena and I had 3 children," Marcus explained, still holding Sophia. "They're all grown now with families of their own. I haven't held a baby in years, but I guess you never really forget." That evening, Marcus called his lawyer to complete the scholarship fund paperwork. Within a week, the Elena Rodriguez Nursing Education Scholarship was officially established, with enough funding to help 10 students each year. Isabella was both the first recipient and the fund's administrator, a role that would allow her to work from home while caring for her babies. The arrangement was working better than either of them had hoped. Isabella proved to be incredibly organized and efficient. She created systems for Marcus's business correspondence, helped him catch up on personal bills, and gradually began the delicate process of organizing Elena's belongings. Most importantly, she cooked nutritious meals that Marcus actually enjoyed eating. Marcus, in return, proved to be a thoughtful and respectful housemate. He baby-proofed the entire house without being asked, installed the best security system available to keep Isabella and the babies safe, and even learned their individual schedules so he could help during particularly difficult periods. One evening, as they shared dinner while the babies slept peacefully in their bouncy seats, Marcus asked Isabella about her nursing career. "I loved working in the pediatric intensive care unit," Isabella said, her eyes lighting up for the first time in months. "There's something special about helping children heal and supporting their families through difficult times. I always dreamed of becoming a nurse practitioner specializing in pediatric care." "What's stopping you from pursuing that dream now?" Marcus asked. Isabella looked at her sleeping babies. "Time, money, childcare, the usual obstacles for single mothers. Nursing. School was hard enough without 3 babies. Advanced practice programs are even more demanding." Marcus was quiet for a moment, then leaned forward with interest. "What if those obstacles could be removed? What if you had reliable childcare, financial support, and a flexible living situation that allowed you to focus on your studies?" Isabella stared at him in disbelief. "Marcus, you've already done so much. I can't ask you to support me through more school." "You're not asking, I'm offering," Marcus said firmly. Elena would have loved this idea. She always said that the best way to honor someone's dreams is to help make them possible for someone else. Over the following weeks, Marcus and Isabella researched nurse practitioner programs. They found a nearby university with an excellent pediatric focus and flexible scheduling options for working mothers. Marcus not only offered to pay for Isabella's education, but also insisted on hiring a part-time nanny to help with the babies during her class and clinical hours. Isabella was overwhelmed by his generosity, but Marcus explained it in practical terms. "You'll be a better healthcare provider with advanced training, which means you'll be able to help more children. The scholarship fund will help other nursing students. It's an investment in healthcare that Elena would have made herself if she were still here." As autumn turned to winter, the house truly began to feel like a home again. Isabella decorated for Halloween, much to Marcus's delight. He hadn't celebrated holidays since Elena's death, but watching Isabella help her babies experience their first Halloween brought back memories of when his own children were small. The babies were thriving in their stable environment. Sophia was the most outgoing of the 3, always ready with smiles for Marcus when he came home from work. Miguel was quieter but incredibly observant, seeming to study everything around him with serious concentration. Anna was the most physically active, already trying to roll over and grab everything within reach. Marcus found himself becoming genuinely attached to the little family that had transformed his empty house. He looked forward to coming home each day, knowing that Isabella would have prepared a delicious meal and that the babies would be ready with their own unique greetings. He started leaving work earlier, not because he had to, but because he wanted to spend time with them. Isabella, meanwhile, was rediscovering herself. Having stable housing and emotional support allowed her confidence to return. She started making plans for the future beyond just surviving day to day. She enrolled in the nurse practitioner program for the following fall and began volunteering at free health clinics on weekends, with Marcus happily babysitting the triplets. The arrangement that had started as a practical solution to immediate problems was evolving into something deeper, a chosen family based on mutual respect, shared values, and genuine care for each other's well-being. Neither Marcus nor Isabella spoke about the growing emotional connection between them, but both were beginning to realize that what had started as a business arrangement was becoming one of the most meaningful relationships of their lives. Spring brought new challenges and revelations to the household that had become so much more than a business arrangement. Isabella had been living with Marcus for 6 months, and the babies were now 10 months old, each developing distinct personalities and beginning to crawl around the house. The baby-proofing Marcus had installed was getting its first real test as 3 curious infants explored every corner they could reach. Marcus had surprised everyone, including himself, by how naturally he had slipped into a grandfather-like role. He would spend evenings on the floor with the babies, helping them practice crawling and celebrating their small achievements as if they were his own grandchildren. Isabella often watched from the kitchen doorway, marveling at how this successful businessman could become completely absorbed in peekaboo games and baby babble conversations. The scholarship fund had grown beyond their initial expectations. Word had spread through the nursing community about the Elena Rodriguez scholarship, and other donors had contributed, allowing them to help even more students. Isabella's role as administrator had evolved into a part-time job that she could do from home while caring for the babies. However, success brought unexpected complications. Isabella's ex-boyfriend Carlos had somehow learned about her improved circumstances. One afternoon, while Marcus was at work and Isabella was in the garden with the babies, Carlos appeared at the front door. Isabella's hands trembled as she saw him through the window. She had hoped never to see him again after he abandoned her, during the most vulnerable time of her life. Now, seeing the expensive house and knowing about her living situation, he had apparently decided he wanted to be part of the picture. "Isabella, we need to talk," Carlos said when she reluctantly opened the door, keeping the chain lock secured. "I heard you're living with some rich old man now. That's not a good environment for my children." "Your children?" Isabella's voice rose with anger she rarely allowed herself to feel. "Where were you when I was homeless and sleeping on the street with these babies? Where were you when I couldn't afford formula or diapers? You have no right to call them your children now." Carlos tried to push past the chain lock. "I want to see them. I have legal rights as their father, and I want to know what kind of arrangement you have with this man. Are you selling yourself to keep a roof over your head?" Isabella's face flushed with rage and humiliation. The implication in Carlos's words cut deep, especially because she had wondered if others might think the same thing about her living situation with Marcus. "Get off this property immediately," Isabella said firmly, "or I'm calling the police." "You can't keep me from my kids forever," Carlos shouted as she closed the door. "I know people who can help me get custody. Rich old men don't make good father figures." Isabella sank to the floor after locking the door, her whole body shaking. The babies, sensing her distress, began crying. For the first time in months, Isabella felt the old panic returning, the feeling that everything good in her life was fragile and could be taken away at any moment. When Marcus came home that evening, he immediately sensed something was wrong. Isabella was quiet during dinner and the babies seemed more fussy than usual. After they had settled the children for the night, Marcus gently asked what was troubling her. Isabella told him about Carlos's visit, including the hurtful implications about their living arrangement. As she spoke, she watched Marcus's face carefully, suddenly worried that Carlos's words might have planted seeds of doubt about the appropriateness of their situation. Marcus listened without interrupting, his expression growing more serious with each detail. When Isabella finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "Isabella," he said finally, "I want you to know that what we have here is one of the most honest and respectful relationships I've ever been part of. Anyone who suggests otherwise doesn't understand what real family looks like." His words brought tears to Isabella's eyes. Over the past months, she had begun to think of Marcus as family, but she hadn't been sure he felt the same way. "But what if he tries to take the babies?" Isabella asked, voicing her deepest fear. "What if he convinces a judge that I'm an unfit mother because of our living situation?" Marcus leaned forward with determination. "Then we'll fight him with the best lawyers money can buy. But more than that, we'll fight him with the truth. Look at how well the babies are doing. Look at how much you've accomplished. Look at the life you've built here." The next morning, Marcus made several phone calls. By afternoon, Isabella had appointments with the city's top family law attorneys. Marcus also arranged for a security system upgrade and hired a private investigator to research Carlos's background and current activities. What they discovered about Carlos was disturbing but not surprising. He had been arrested twice in the past year for drug possession and had recently lost his job. His sudden interest in the babies seemed motivated more by the potential for child support payments than genuine parental concern. The legal consultation was reassuring. The attorneys explained that Carlos would have a difficult time gaining custody, given his abandonment of the family during the baby's first months of life, his criminal record, and his failure to provide any financial support. However, they warned that he might still have visitation rights unless Isabella could prove he was dangerous to the children. As they dealt with the Carlos situation, Marcus and Isabella grew closer. The external threat made them realize how much their unusual family meant to both of them. Marcus began referring to the babies as our children in conversation, and Isabella started including him in all decisions about their care and future. The crisis also brought clarity about their feelings for each other. Late one evening, after a particularly stressful day of legal meetings, Marcus and Isabella sat on the back porch while the baby slept inside. "I need to tell you something," Marcus said, his voice unusually hesitant. "These past months with you and the babies have been the happiest I've been since Elena died. You've brought life back to this house and meaning back to my days. I know our age difference makes this complicated, and I know you might not feel the same way, but I've fallen in love with all of you." Isabella felt her heart skip. She had been struggling with similar feelings but hadn't wanted to complicate their arrangement or risk the stability it provided for her children. "I've been afraid to admit how much I care about you too," Isabella said quietly. "You've been more than generous to us. You've been the father figure these babies needed and the partner I never expected to find. But I worry that people will think I'm taking advantage of your kindness." Marcus reached for her hand. "Let them think what they want. We know the truth about what we've built together." As they sat together in the peaceful evening, both Marcus and Isabella realized that their arrangement had evolved into something neither had planned, but both desperately needed. They were no longer just helping each other survive. They were creating a future together. However, the Carlos situation was far from resolved, and they both knew that their newfound happiness would face serious challenges in the days ahead. The fight for the baby's future was just beginning, and it would test every aspect of the life they had built together. The legal battle with Carlos stretched on for 3 months, but it ultimately strengthened the bond between Marcus and Isabella rather than destroying it. Their attorneys built a compelling case showing how the babies had thrived in their stable environment with Marcus and Isabella, while Carlos had continued his pattern of irresponsible behavior. The turning point came when Carlos was arrested again, this time for driving under the influence while supposedly on his way to a court-mandated meeting with social services. The judge was not impressed with his commitment to fatherhood, and Carlos's legal team began pushing for a settlement rather than risking a complete loss of parental rights. During this stressful period, Marcus proved to be Isabella's strongest supporter. He attended every court hearing, hired a child psychologist to document the baby's healthy development, and even arranged for character witnesses from the community to testify about Isabella's excellent care of her children. His unwavering support during the legal proceedings showed Isabella that his feelings for their family were genuine and permanent. The babies, now over a year old, were beginning to walk and say their first words. Sophia's first word was "mama," followed quickly by something that sounded remarkably like Marcus. Miguel said "book" while sitting in Marcus's lap during their evening reading sessions. Anna's first word was "up," usually accompanied by her arms stretched toward whoever was closest. Watching them develop into distinct little personalities filled both Marcus and Isabella with joy and pride. In August, exactly 1 year after their first meeting on the city street, Marcus made a decision that surprised even him. He had been thinking about it for weeks, but the idea became clear during one of their evening family dinners. The babies were happily eating finger foods in their high chairs. Isabella was telling him about her progress in the nurse practitioner program, and Marcus realized this was exactly how he wanted to spend every evening for the rest of his life. After dinner, when the babies were settled in the living room with their toys, Marcus asked Isabella to join him on the back porch where they had first admitted their feelings for each other. "Isabella," he began, his voice nervous in a way she had never heard before, "this year has been the most meaningful of my life. Watching you grow into an even more confident and capable woman, seeing these 3 beautiful children develop and thrive, being part of a family again. It's everything I never thought I'd have after Elena died." Isabella could sense something important was coming. Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I know this might seem unconventional. We're from different generations, different backgrounds, and we came together under unusual circumstances. But what we've built together is real and beautiful and strong. Will you marry me? Will you let me be the father these babies deserve and the husband you deserve?" Isabella stared at the ring, then at Marcus's hopeful face, then back at the ring. The diamond was beautiful but not ostentatious, elegant and classic, much like Marcus himself. More importantly, The proposal wasn't about rescue or charity. It was about love, partnership, and the family they had created together. "Yes," Isabella said, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, absolutely yes." As Marcus slipped the ring onto her finger, they could hear the babies laughing in the living room. Sophia had apparently figured out how to make Miguel and Ana laugh by making silly faces, and their giggles filled the house with joy. 2 weeks later, the legal situation with Carlos was finally resolved. He agreed to relinquish his parental rights in exchange for Marcus agreeing not to pursue charges for harassment and threats. The private investigator had uncovered enough questionable behavior to make Carlos realize he was fighting a losing battle. With his rights terminated, Isabella and her children were finally free from his disruptive influence. Marcus immediately began the process of adopting the 3 babies. At 18 months old, Sophia, Miguel, and Ana would legally become his children, giving them the security and stability they deserved. The adoption process was smooth, with social workers noting the exceptional care and opportunities the children had in their home with Marcus and Isabella. The wedding took place in December, in the same garden where Marcus had first seen Isabella, playing with the babies. It was a small ceremony with Marcus's children and grandchildren in attendance, along with Isabella's friends from nursing school and colleagues from the hospital where she was completing her clinical rotations. The babies served as the world's most adorable wedding party, with Sophia throwing flower petals, Miguel carrying rings tied to his wrist with ribbon, and Ana clapping enthusiastically throughout the ceremony. As they exchanged vows, both Marcus and Isabella reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. A chance encounter on a city street had led to a business arrangement, which had evolved into genuine friendship, then deep love, and finally a legal and spiritual union that made their chosen family official. Isabella's vows included a promise to help Marcus honor Elena's memory while building new traditions for their family. Marcus's vows included a promise to support Isabella's dreams and ambitions while being the father her children needed. Both promised to face whatever challenges came their way, as equal partners in a relationship built on mutual respect and genuine affection. The Elena Rodriguez Nursing Education Scholarship continued to grow, now helping dozens of students each year. Isabella completed her nurse practitioner degree with honors and opened a pediatric practice specializing in care for low-income families. Marcus adjusted his work schedule to spend more time with the children and began involving them in age-appropriate charitable activities, teaching them the importance of helping others. By their second wedding anniversary, the triplets were running around the house, getting into everything and filling every day with laughter and chaos. Sophia had become the family diplomat, always trying to mediate when her brothers disagreed. Miguel had developed an intense love of books and would sit quietly for hours looking at pictures while Marcus read to him. Ana had become the family athlete, climbing everything and keeping her parents in constant motion. Marcus often reflected on how different his life had become since that Tuesday afternoon, when he had decided to walk to his favorite coffee shop. If he had chosen to drive that day or taken a different route, he might never have met Isabella and her babies. The randomness of their meeting felt like destiny in retrospect. Isabella had achieved everything she had dreamed of and more. She had a career she loved, financial security, a partner who supported her ambitions, and children who were thriving in a stable, loving environment. Most importantly, she had learned that sometimes the most unexpected paths lead to the most fulfilling destinations. The house that had once been too quiet and too empty was now filled with the sounds of family life. Children's laughter, bedtime, stories, family meals, and the comfortable conversations of two people who had chosen to build a life together. What had started as a tearful encounter on a busy street had become a testament to the power of compassion, the importance of second chances, and the beautiful families that can be created when strangers choose to help each other heal and grow. Marcus and Isabella's story became a reminder that sometimes the most profound changes in life come not from grand plans or careful strategies, but from simple moments of human kindness that open doors to possibilities neither person could have imagined alone.